During an IFR flight in IMC, a distress condition is encountered, fire, mechanical, or structural failure. The pilot should answer, not hesitate to declare emergency and obtain an amended clearance. Refer to Figure 19, Area 6. What is the minimum in-flight visibility and distance from clouds required for an aircraft operating less than 1,200 feet AGL during daylight hours? Answer: 1 mile, I clear of clouds, K clear of clouds, L clear of clouds. Before beginning any flight under IFR, the pilot must become familiar with all available information concerning the flight, including the runway lengths at the airport of intended use and the aircraft's takeoff and landing data. What responsibility does the pilot in command on have of an IFR flight assume upon entering VFR conditions? Answer: seeing and avoiding other aircraft. What standard minimums are required to list an airport as an alternate on an IFR flight plan if the airport has VOR approach only? Answer: ceiling and visibility at ETA 800 feet and 2 miles, respectively. Which of the following describes an airport? Answer: an area of land or water that is used for the landing and takeoff of aircraft includes its buildings and facilities. For Figure 92, Area 5. What is the minimum in-flight visibility and distance from clouds required for an aircraft operating less than 1,200 feet AGL under special VFR during daylight hours? 1 mile, I clear of clouds, J clear of clouds, L clear of clouds. While performing a VFR practice instrument approach, radar approach controller assigns an altitude or heading that will cause you to enter the clouds. What action should you take? Advise unable and remain clear of the clouds. Before beginning an IFR flight, the pilot must become familiar with all available information concerning that flight. Additionally, the pilot must be familiar with the runway lengths at the airports of intended use and alternates available if the flight cannot be completed. For aircraft other than helicopter, is an alternate required for IFR flight through ATL if the proposed ETA is 1930, given a TAF? Answer: no, because the ceiling and visibility are forecast to be at or above 2,000 feet and 3 miles within 1 hour before to 1 hour after the ETA. Is an IFR clearance required during VFR weather conditions? When operating Class A airspace. When must a pilot fly at a cardinal altitude plus 500 on the IFR flight plan? Answer: when assigned a VFR on top clearance. What are the minimum fuel requirements in IFR conditions if the first airport of intended landing is forecast to have 1,500-foot ceilings and 3 miles visibility at your planned ETA? Fuel to fly to the first airport of intended landing? Answer: fly to the alternate and fly thereafter for 45 minutes at normal cruising speed. When is a pilot on an IFR flight plan responsible for avoiding other aircraft? Answer: when weather conditions permit, regardless of whether operating under IFR or VFR. What are the minimum weather conditions that must be forecast to list an airport as an alternate when the airport is not approved IAP? Answer: the ceiling visibility at ETA must allow descent from MEA approach and landing under basic VFR. During your flight planning for an IFR flight, you determine that the first airport of intended landing has no instrument approach. The weather forecast for 1 hour before through 1 hour after your ETA is 1,500 feet. There's 1,500 feet overcast with 5 miles of visibility. To meet the fuel requirements for the flight, you must be able to fly to the first airport of intended landing. Answer: then the alternate airport, and then for 45 minutes at normal cruising speed. For an airplane, determine the weather minimum conditions required at the destination airport to avoid listings and alternate on your IFR flight plan. Answer: from 1 hour before, 1 hour after ETA forecast ceiling 2,000 and visibility 3 miles. While an IFR flight, a pilot has an emergency that causes deviation from ATC clearance, what action must be taken? Notify ATC of deviation as soon as possible. What minimum weather conditions must be forecast for your ETA at an alternate airport that only has a VOR approach with standard alternate minimums from the airport to be listed as alternate in the IFR flight plan? Answer: 800 feet ceiling and 2 statute miles of visibility. When a pilot elects to proceed to the selected alternate airport, which minimums apply for landing at the alternate? Answer: the landing minimums for the approach to be used. An airport without an authorized IAP may be included on an IFR flight plan as an alternate if the current weather forecast indicates that the ceiling of visibility at the ETA will. Answer: allow for descent from MEA approach and landing under basic VFR conditions. When should your transponder be on mode C while on a IFR flight? Answer: at all times if the equipment has been calibrated unless requested otherwise by ATC. For the figure 92, area 4, what in-flight visibility and distance from clouds is required for a flight at 8,000 feet above 1,200 feet AGL in Class G airspace in VFR conditions during daylight hours? 1 mile, E 1,000 feet, G 2,000 feet, H 500 feet. When are you required to establish communication with the tower? Class D airspace. If you cancel your IFR flight plan 10 miles from the destination. before entering Class D airspace. What is the required visibility and distance from clouds when operating in Class E at 9,500 feet MSL with a VFR on top clearance during daylight hours? Answer 3 SM, 1,000 feet above, 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontal. When may ATC request a detailed report of an emergency even though a rule has not been violated? Answer when priority has been given. The term airport refers to an area of land or water that is used or intended to be used for the landing and takeoff of aircraft and includes the buildings and facilities, if any. Prior to any flight under IFR, the pilot in command must become familiar with all information concerning the flight, including runway lengths at airports of intended use and aircraft's takeoff and landing information. When is an IFR flight plan required? In Class E airspace when IMC exists or Class A airspace. What does declaring minimum fuel imply to ATC? It is an advisory that indicates an emergency situation is possible should any undue delay occur. Which publication covers the procedures required for aircraft accident and incident reports, responsibilities for pilots? NTSB Part 830. Determine the alternate minimums for an airport with a precision approach procedure. Answer 600-foot ceiling and 2 miles of visibility. What is the minimum flight visibility and distance from clouds for flight at 10,500 feet with a VFR on top clearance during daylight hours in Class E airspace? Answer 5 SM, 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below, and 1 mile horizontal. During pre-flight planning for an IFR flight, you determine that the first airport of intended landing has no instrument approach. The weather forecast for 1 hour before through 1 hour after your ETA is 2,000 feet scattered with 3 miles visibility. To meet fuel requirements for this flight, you must be able to fly the first airport of intended landing and answer, then the alternate airport, and then 45 minutes at normal cruising speed. For the figure 92, area 2. What minimums in flight visibility and distance from clouds required for VFR conditions above clouds at 13,500 feet MSL, above 12,000 feet AGL, or 1,200 feet AGL, Class G airspace during daylight hours? Answer 5 miles, A 1,000, C 1 mile, D 1,000 feet.